Hi, welcome to the Standard Newsroom. I'm Karina Walter, and I'm here with St. Catharines Mayor Walter Sendzik for our last online video chat before the municipal election.
Yes, so it has been a great experience to be able to share with your readers all the great things and viewers all the great things, and I got to compliment the Standard for expanding beyond just the pages and the digital pages and bringing this to life. You've done a wonderful job.
It's been a lot of fun.
It's been a great time.
Yeah. So you've got a busy couple of months ahead of you. Do you enjoy going out and knocking on doors and campaigning?
It's actually the part of this campaign season that I enjoy the most. It's getting out and talking to folks, and what you really get to learn more about is how they see the city building around them. So it's about their streets, their neighborhoods, their parks, and I get to have discussions about what we're actually doing in the community that they may not be seeing, and also get feedback for some of the ideas that they can be bringing forward. And I gotta say, the last time I did this, 2014, things like Lakeside Park and the investments that we've made into Lakeside Park, a lot of that came from knocking on the doors and people saying that pavilion is too old, that pavilion has gone beyond its usefulness. Is there something you can do in Lakeside Park? And so that came from just simply knocking on doors and talking to folks in their neighborhood. So I'm looking forward to it. I've already started knocking on some doors. I'm looking forward to knocking on some more.
Why did you decide to run again?
We are halfway through, I think, a very ambitious strategic plan. We brought, as a council, we brought in a strategic plan in 2014, and it has a bold mission, which is to be one of the best cities of our size in North America. It's something that's going to take a lot of work, and we have made tremendous inroads into where the city's going. I'm immensely proud of our achievements and where the city is. It is further on the map than it ever has been, with investments that have been made in previous councils, and now this council is really focused on the infrastructure of our community, branding our community, investing in places in neighborhoods that maybe have been overlooked over the past number of years. And so these are exciting times for our city, and I'm proud of the work that we've done as a council in the first 4 years, and the next 4 years is going to be about carrying forward that momentum and continuing to reach that stretch goal of being one of the best cities in North America.
So all the candidates have until next Friday at 2 o'clock to sign up, regional council mayors. But council's still going to be meeting after that, right, and there's still business of council going on. What is council allowed to do and not allowed to do once that election campaign kind of starts, it gets into full swing?
Good question, because it all centers on something called lame duck. Mm-hmm. And so lame duck is if there is under 75% of the current makeup of council coming back, then there's, under the Municipal Act, there's certain actions that we can't approve of, certain budgetary matters, expense matters. And so the clerk has been very clear with us, and she's provided a report as to what the threshold will be and what our responsibilities are. If we go into lame duck, our agendas will be much shorter, because we won't have an opportunity to decide on some of the bigger items. So
this is like big financial issues.
Big financial, it could be planning documents, things that you need a full complement of council to be there, because it's going to have an impact on the next term of council. So after the 27th, I think the clerk will have a better idea of where we are, and then we'll be looking at what our decision matrix will be moving forward.
Okay. So I wanted to ask you about the news of the week.
Water bottles?
Water bottles, yes. Well, hey, okay, let's go backwards for a second there. I noticed you don't have a plastic water bottle today. You have a refillable water bottle, yep. And the city made some big decisions about water bottles.
Yeah, and it was a decision long overdue. And what we had done is in 2006, there was a motion to move forward with removing plastic water bottles out of city facilities. And then in 2012, that was reaffirmed. And then looking at it in 2017, not a lot of action had taken place. And so this council said, okay, let's take the next step. And last Monday, we finally approved the banning of plastic water bottles as a first step, in conjunction with investing in water refill stations. So we call them hydration stations. They're in our libraries, in our city, our senior centers, our arenas. So making sure that we are investing in that infrastructure that allow people to bring a bottle like that and fill it up. In addition to that, we're also putting together a plan so that we can phase out all plastic bottles that are being sold at our facilities and so we can transition into a higher commodity recycling product like aluminum or a stainless steel. And it's just about making sure that we're doing everything we can to preserve and protect our environment. I said this to a couple of individuals who are saying that this is just greenwashing, this is not something that's going to have an impact. We have, as a community, have to look 7 generations ahead. If I've learned anything from our First Nations discussions that we've had with our First Nations brothers and sisters, it's that they think 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. And so what decisions are we making today that will have that kind of impact? And plastic, it doesn't decompose. It has a 1,000-year lifespan. That's not the kind of product that I think we should be building more of in our community. We should be looking for ways to reduce the plastic footprint. And yeah, the Plastic Bottle Association, they all come out and they attack you and they do all their thing. They're paid to do that. They're lobbyists. I get it. But the reality is, if I'm looking at my sons and daughters, great-grandchildren, what impact can we have today by transitioning away from plastics into either a higher commodity recyclable product or compostable product? So I'm proud of the decision of this council, and I think if we think more about 7 generations out as councils and as community, we're going to make longer-term decisions that are going to be in the benefit of everybody.
Well, some of the concerns by a couple of councillors, and we've also heard them from residents who've responded to our stories as well, that the city has started with water. So the only thing that you're going to have in the vending machines now are pop and sugary juices and that kind of thing. Like, why get rid of water first?
And that's why we have the hydration stations right there, because that's a free commodity. And I look at it, water is a right, not a privilege. And so we have these corporations who are making hundreds of millions of dollars on taking water out of a municipal facility, doing something to it, putting a cap on it in plastic, putting it for sale for $3 to $4 or $5. I can't comprehend that. We have some of the most cleanest water in the world here in our community of Niagara and St. Catharines, and yet we're going out and putting more money in the back pockets of these large conglomerate corporations, and we could just be simply refilling our water bottles with clean water from our municipality that you pay for as a taxpayer. So breaking that cycle of dependency on a plastic water bottle and the water that is trucked from other parts of either Ontario, Canada, North America, it doesn't make sense to me. And I think you're going to see at least the next generation, they look at this and they say, plastic, that's a waste. Let's move towards this, and we've done that job. And I know we have the support of young people in our community, because this is the kind of direction Niagara College has done it in 2012. Brock University has done it. Niagara Falls, the city of Niagara Falls has already done it. They did in 2009. They're leaders on this. We're followers. So we're just playing catch up. And I got to say, I'm not thinking about the lobbyists. I'm not thinking about the Plastic Bottle Association of Canada. I'm thinking about my grandkids and great-grandkids.
What about the financial side of it? Because the city is making money from those large conglomerates that are putting their vending machines in the city.
100%, and I think we've got to look at other forms of revenue. And one of the things that we could be looking at is we can produce these. We can go to a branding company, we can produce these, and then we can sell these to members of our community at cost, so that we encourage more people to use these type of products rather than a plastic bottle that's thrown into either the trash bin or the recycling bin that doesn't even go to the recycling center. So it may seem like it's a small issue, but I think our future generations will thank us for this.
So I wanted to get to the Ombudsman's report, which has been the news this week, and I think you might have seen that the Globe and Mail wrote an editorial about the Niagara region today and the Ombudsman. This was the report into the night that a St. Catharines Standard reporter was kicked out of a December 7th meeting at Regional Council and his laptop was seized. I was talking to you about this yesterday, and you're recommending that the region follow the recommendations that the Ombudsman has made, apologize to Bill Sawchuk and Preston Haskell. And you also mentioned that all Niagara municipalities may want to look at these recommendations and possibly adopt them.
Well, I already forwarded the Ombudsman report to our city clerk and said this should be shared with all of council, as well as let's look at the recommendations, especially around council proceedings, and let's make sure that if we don't have those processes in place, let's adopt them, and let's strengthen what we already do as a council. I think this process has shone a light on how councils proceed at the region, and how there were gaps and deficiencies. And it's not for anyone's fault. It's for the fact that an incident happened. And because of that incident, the byproduct is there was a review of how it was handled, and there was errors and mistakes that are easily corrected. No one should feel embarrassed that they made mistakes. I think ultimately the way this should have been handled is that everyone should have complied with the Ombudsman's request for providing information. You wait for the report to come forward. When the report's issued, you look at the recommendations and implement them. Very simple. This whole interference and trying to influence, and I don't understand that. I don't, because the Ombudsman's purpose wasn't to come in and say, you, sir, are wrong and something should happen to you. It was, here's the mistakes that you made, here's how you can correct them, and move forward. Very simple.
So you're referring to the external lawyer that the region hired, who the Ombudsman said was very adversarial, and he had, they made some errors that he had to correct and that kind of thing. You sent a letter yesterday or an email to the CAO asking about that hiring process of that lawyer and who was directing them. Have you gotten any response about that?
The name was simply shared back with me and the firm upon which that the individual was from, but I didn't get the report in terms of who authorized the hiring, how was the law firm selected, and what was the upward limit of the amount of money that would be spent on external legal counsel. So all those questions will come out on July 26th next week, but it is concerning to see external counsel trying to influence or getting in the way of this type of report, because again, the purpose of the report wasn't to come in and be a sort of negative, we're going to force blame on anybody, and then it was about how can you take corrective actions to make sure it doesn't happen again. So that's where I'd be looking at.
Okay. The region recently received another report too, the Huberman report it's being called, about the CAO's hiring, and when that came out at council earlier in July, you had a lot of questions about just the process and the conclusions of that. But with the Ombudsman's report, you say the region should take all the recommendations. So I'm wondering what the difference is between those two reports and how you see them.
Karina, great question, because my first reaction when I read the Ombudsman report and then the one from ADR is the Ombudsman report is how a report should be presented. That was a very thorough investigation on an incident that happened, within a very short period of time, a couple of hours, and that's what happened, and then you do the interviews. The one from ADR was, my reaction to it wasn't very well done. It wasn't well researched. Yeah, you can say that you went through 200,000 emails. I don't know how physically a human being can go through 200,000 emails in that short a time and then write a report like that. So there's a lot of questions that the ADR report presented that were left hanging, and the individual who wrote the report didn't come across to me as very strong in his understanding of what was requested, in his understanding of the roles of an ombudsman, because we gave him all the powers of an ombudsman. So that report was lacking and left me with a lot more questions than answers. The one that was just issued on the December 7th, the 7th incident by the Ombudsman of Ontario, that's how a report should be written. So utmost confidence in this one, not a lot in the previous one on the hiring of the CAO.
So you've read the final report from front to back. I've been calling councillors this week along with one of my colleagues. We found a lot of councillors who haven't read the report yet. I mean, it's making national news. Does that surprise you? And some of them said they didn't even know that the draft report was available to them in June.
I can't speak for other councillors. I think it's been a busy couple of weeks for last night on Niagara Regional Housing, and then we have one next week on this issue as well. So trying to balance the time of either running your own, being a part of your own business, or being a part of a city corporation, and then trying to read this report. I think a lot of them were just probably waiting for the weekend to come, take their time and read it on the weekend. I had time, so I went through it thoroughly, and it left a lot of questions for me.
Okay. I've got a few reader questions, so I did want to get into them. We've taken a lot of time already. These came in through Twitter. So I have a reader, Trish O'Neill, asking, what is the city's contingency plan should Rex Steimers not be open as planned this fall? Rumor has it won't open.
So great question, and later today, the Director of Parks and Rec and our CAO will be issuing a media release. There is an identified issue with the age of the ice making machine at Rex. It's 50 plus years old. There was an incident that happened out in British Columbia, I think 2 years ago, where a technician and an employee were killed, and it was because of the ammonia release that came with an old mechanical machine. That has ratcheted up the compliance for a lot of these older ice pads. So what's happened is there is a report that has been undertaken at the Rex timers, and as a result, as a precautionary measure, the city is preparing for, in the event that that ice machine can't start in September, what does the ice allocation look like? So instead of surprising ice users September 1st, it's we're gonna create the ice capacity as if that doesn't have ice, allowing all ice users to know where the availability will be. Because the last thing we want to do as a city is have leagues that are dependent upon Rex wake up September 2nd and go, there's no ice now. And so this is a very proactive move, and it's precautionary just in case that equipment can't start.
Okay. Is there a possibility of the city buying new equipment, or is it you're trying to fix that equipment?
That'll be for a decision of the Transportation Environmental Services Group and Parks and Rec when they actually see what the condition is of that unit and what the cost would be to bring it up to current standards.
Do you know what our ice allocation is like right now? How many people would be using that facility?
I think there's been some changes to the system because now we have a full complement at the Fort Pad. Don't forget, for the last 2.5, 3 years, we've had either 1 or 2 pads down. Now we have a full complement over there. And I got to give a shout out to the mayor of Pelham, Dave Augustine. They have the opening of their wonderful new facility, which actually does take pressure off of St. Catharines, because you'd be surprised how many of those user groups would come into St. Catharines and book ice time for practices and exhibition games because lack of ice time in Pelham. So now Pelham has additional ice time. You'll see some movement over there. So this will be the first season that we can really see where is our complete ice capacity, and I'm sure, and I'm confident, we've also been in touch with Ridley College. They've been a great partner with us. They have ice there, and I'm confident that we'll be able to move it around in the event that we can't get ice at the Rex.
Okay. Another reader asking, where can we obtain details? This is Gaga Garlic. Where can we obtain details on the development taking place at Ontario Carleton Street? Where are the updates on the progress posted? So they're referring to Bayshore's old, the GM site, right. The GM plants.
So there has been quarterly memos to council from the Director of Planning and Building Services. They are available as part of our council agendas, and those updates have continued to provide where is the demolition process, what kind of planning reports have come forward from the company. It has been a concern for a lot of folks. From our property standards perspective, our property standards, people are going in there and making sure that the weeds are being cut down, getting the graffiti off the walls, those kind of visible things. I can say that our planning department has always been working with the developer, with the company that owns the property, but there has been a slowdown recently, and we're hoping for positive news in the next couple of months.
Okay, the city really can't do anything to make somebody build something.
Yeah. It's not our property. We can only continue to uphold the property standards. And people talk about the taxes and what's owed. There is a 3-year rolling tax in terms of when businesses can pay. We're moving forward on making sure that we're going to get those dollars that are owed to us. But there is a process. You can't simply just snap your fingers and say, pay us. There's a process that everyone has to go through, and we're going through that process.
Another question from Mike Gretzinger. When re-elected as mayor, he's a fan of yours. When re-elected as mayor and subsequently reappointed to regional council, what procedures would you suggest be in place, making councillors more accountable for their behavior as public servants, as well as fully disclosing personal expenditures the public pay for?
Great question, Mike, and I would start with a code of conduct. And it wouldn't simply just be a code of conduct that you'd be presented as a new council. It's one that I will advocate that you sign off on. I want to see a signature at the end of a code of conduct that will ensure we have all read it and we've all signed it. And I would like to see that on an annual basis. just like a health and safety where you have to sign off on health and safety. You sign off on a code of conduct. That would be the first step. So you've read it and you're going to follow it. And if you don't follow it, there's going to be repercussions. In terms of transparency, I think when it comes to expenses, that we should be releasing our expenses and gifts on a quarterly report. I do it at the City of St. Catharines. It's not hard to do. You compile, every week you compile all the places that you've gone with the city credit card, and I put on the receipt who I met with. Business owner, member of the community, member of my staff, whoever it is, they're on the receipt. So the public can know who I'm meeting with. If you don't want the public to know, don't use your corporate credit card to pay for it. It's simple, but even gifts that you're given, put it up there so people can see the kind of things that a elected representative is being given in the community. Those are simple steps that can be taken, and at the end of the day, just have integrity when you're sitting around council chambers and making decisions.
I have enjoyed seeing what kind of gifts people give you over the years. I think
So have
you've
I.
got some personal. Yeah. I know we're like past our time, but I just want to ask you one more question because I think this comes up pretty much every chat that we do. People ask about the opioid crisis in the city. We have Crystal Leopard asking, when will something be done about the opioid crisis in the city? When will it be safe for kids to play at parks without stepping on used needles? I have to walk my child to school with the needles all over the sidewalks.
See, I would say to Crystal, you need to send that information into City Hall, Citizens First, at stcatharines.ca. If you see needles on sidewalks or if you see needles in parks, we have to know that there is a hot spot for needle usage, and we can deploy a plan in that area to address why there's needles being discarded, who's doing it. We can figure those things out, but this isn't something that's just going to go away overnight. And the temporary supervised injection site that people have been talking about, we're hoping to hear more information soon from the provincial government on that. Positive Living has been working very hard to secure that site. That's going to be one tool in the toolbox. We have firefighters who have been trained with the naloxone that if a person has gone into a induced state through injection, that they're able to bring them back. We have our parks teams that are being trained on how to safely contain and pick up the discarded needles. We have bins that are being put in parks. Our libraries have bins that are being put in there. Like, we're doing what we can, working with our community agencies, whether it be Quest or Positive Living or Community Care, YW. We're working with the agencies that are working with those who have an addictions issues. But I got to say to Crystal, the usage is going like this. The opioids usage is going like this. It's not going down. So this issue isn't going to go away, but we have to take a community approach to it, and that's what we've been doing for the last 2 years. And we will continue to shine a light on this and make sure it's a priority of the next term of council.
Well, I think that's our time. So thanks for joining me, and thanks for joining me over the last 4 years.
No problem. You gave me a little extra time today. I appreciate that.
I did, yeah.
I appreciate that. It's been great to be a part of it, and I look forward to the next couple of months, and we'll see what happens after October 22nd.
Well, thank you for joining us, and remember to bring your water bottles with you to city facilities.